So it's the day after Thanksgiving and it's a time to be thankful that these movies bombed. These are 10 movies that came out in 2024 so far that have rightfully flopped at the box office. Now I will say I didn't see all these movies, and just because they're on the list doesn't necessarily mean they're terrible, although pretty much all of these are. But some cases, it's the circumstances surrounding the movie that made it obvious it was gonna bomb from the start. So let's get into it. First off is The Apprentice, you know, the Donald Trump smear campaign starring Sebastian Stan. Yeah, this one was a massive flop. With a budget of $16 million, this thing made barely $3.9 million and finished, at least so far, 129th at the box office. And it will drop after movies like Moana 2, Mufasa, and Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and that new Lord of the Rings movie come out, all of which will do at least moderately well, if not make bank at the box office. And to keep this in perspective for this piece of shit smear campaign that obviously didn't work, and it is a smear campaign because, one, they made up shit about his life, including a rape scene, which doesn't even make sense in the context of the film, and two, they released it weeks before the election. So, yeah, it's pretty obvious what their intentions were, but it bombed massively. And to put this in perspective, Reagan made $30 million off a $25 million budget, with finishing in 46th domestically. And the Daily Wire documentary, Am I Racist?, off a $3 million budget, and again, this was a Daily Wire produced documentary, made $12.3 million and finished in 80th. Yeah, that tells you how bad this movie bombed. Next one up is the American Society of Magical Negroes, for obvious reasons. I couldn't find the budget anywhere, but my estimation, and I think I saw this at some point, was roughly in between $35 to $50 million. I think that'd probably be a safe bet, and it made $2.4 million domestically. And I don't think it even got released overseas, just like The Apprentice. Finishing in 158th place. Losing to a bunch of re-releases that came out this year, and even movies that came out in 2023, including ones like Hunger Games, which came out all the way back in November of 2023. That's how bad this movie did at the box office, and rightfully so. Next one up is The Crow. Everybody knew this movie would bomb, I just don't think everybody knew just how bad. On a budget of $50 million, I have no idea how the budget was that high, it made about $9.2 million at the domestic box office, finishing in 92nd. And yeah, that's pretty bad for a comic book film, bad for a movie in general with this massive of a budget. Overseas, it did a bit better, but still not even close enough to break even. Next one up is Joker Folie à Deux, making $58.3 million domestically, off a budget anywhere between $190 to $200 million. I still don't understand how the budget for this was this high. I'm assuming it was mostly for the cast, director, and the rights for these songs that they used. And I don't know exactly what place it was, I forgot to write that down, but I'm assuming it's in 33rd, following just behind another movie that's on the list. But we'll get there. Next one up is Borderlands, and this one was garbage. This one was mostly forgotten as well, so I'd be honestly surprised if it made the top 15 worst of the year, because it was just so forgettable. It'll probably make the top 15, but not the top 10 for me, but it was pretty bad. Off a budget of $100 million, yes really, it made $15.4 million, finishing in 75th. Once again, almost 30 spots behind Reagan, which didn't even get a worldwide release. Borderlands, I don't even remember what it made globally, but it wasn't near enough to break even. Next one up is one everybody knew would bomb. Another one everybody knew was bomb. It's Madam Web. Off a budget of about $80 million, or maybe it was a little bit higher, it made $43.8 million, finishing in 39th. Now, that doesn't 39th doesn't sound bad without any context, but considering this still isn't even the highest one on this list, it's pretty bad. And especially since this is part of a big comic book movie cinematic universe, it needed to make more than it did. I'd be shocked if this made more than Kraven the Hunter, even though Kraven the Hunter is kind of set to flop as well, which that probably would have made the list too, even though I'm hoping that movie's good. But this movie was bad, it deserved to bomb, and the shitty marketing didn't help. Next one up is Argyle. I didn't see this one. I planned to see it, but I just kept putting it off, especially after bad word of mouth came out. I decided to just pass on it. But this one was a mega flop. $200 million budget. Yes, really, $200 million, raking in $45.2 million at the domestic box office, making about its budget worldwide, but not enough to break even. Finishing in 38th, which, if your memory is pretty good, that means it finished just one spot above Madam Web, which I just discussed about 30 seconds ago. And I've heard this movie was pretty bad. It didn't look that great, so I decided to pass on it. Next one up is one I really didn't like, but everybody else seemed to love for some reason, and that's Transformers 1. Mainly, it made the list, 1, because I hated the hell out of this movie, and 2, I knew it was going to bomb, especially with the shitty marketing. It was going to bomb badly, and it did. With a budget of around anywhere between $75 to $147 million, yeah, I know, it's quite the jump, but that's all I could find. It made $59 million domestically, and went to streaming very quickly. Just like, what was the other one on here? It was it Borderlands that went to streaming really? Or no, it was American Society of Magical Negroes that went to streaming like that. In total, I think it made probably close to 100 mil. I should have written down the worldwide ones, but I didn't think about it. But again, $59 million is not going to give you a box office success, finishing in 32nd, at least so far. Again, a lot of these positions will drop after a lot of the big tentpole movies come out. Hell, they're probably already going to drop even further with movies that just came out, like Wicked and Gladiator 2. Next one up is Furiosa Mad Max Saga. Now, I heard this movie was good, but I didn't see it, so I can't really give my opinion on it. Mainly, the reason it made the list is because everybody knew it was going to flop, because really nobody had any interest in this Mad Max spinoff, and I didn't either. With a budget of $168 million, it made $67.4 million. And yes, I am dealing with a cold, if you couldn't tell. Finishing in 28th, just a few spots above Transformers, which, again, is pretty bad considering its massive budget and the fact that it's part of a big franchise. And last but not least, we have Megalopolis, which everybody knew was gonna flop. I thought about seeing this, but I didn't really have any interest in it. Again, sorry, I'm dealing with a cold, so it's not... My voice is hoarse and my sinuses are acting up. But especially with its massive budget and lack of marketing. $120 to $136 million was the estimated budget. It made $7.6 million. Yes, really, $7.6 million domestically, finishing in 99th place, which would make it the second lowest grossing on this behind The Apprentice. Which, good. That one is basically made nothing. Actually, no, third. I forgot. American Society of Magical Negroes would be in last, because that was at 158th, which is basically as low as you can get. But everybody knew this was going to bomb because of the bad marketing, the inflated budget, and just a lack of interest in it all the way around. I originally had ISS on this as well before I remembered Joker 2, which was also a massive flop. I talked about when I made my worst of 2023, that I mentioned that one when I do the bit of looking at the worst ones to come up. And this was on there, but I never saw it because I didn't really care. This one was less of a flop than the other ones because of its lower budget. It had 13, so I guess this is the top 11, I guess. $13.8 million budget, $6.5 million domestically, finishing in 104th. Which, again, is still better than The Apprentice and American Society of Magical Races. So, good on that. So, yeah, most of these movies I knew were going to bomb just from the marketing alone, or with all the details surrounding these movies, especially ones like Transformers and The Crow. And The Apprentice definitely deserved to bomb, so... And the fact that a lot of these made less than... that some of these made less than, again, a independently produced Daily Wire documentary and a biopic that barely got released in enough theaters to be considered a very wide release That's pretty bad. And a lot of these were barely above Reagan's, so that tells you all you need to know. But again, Reagan was a great film. And if you noticed, these were only ones that should have bombed or were going to bomb no matter what. So I didn't put movies like Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare on here because, one, most people that I've talked to and me personally really liked the film, and there was no guarantee it would flop. It just happened to be a good movie that didn't make money. So yeah, and I don't think any of the big tentpoles upcoming will flop. I don't think Moana 2 will flop. I don't think Mufasa or Sonic 3 or Lord of the Rings will flop, even though I'm begging for Mufasa to flop. But it probably won't. It'll make just enough money to be considered a profit. Just like this second Maleficent movie or the second Alice in Wonderland movie, it'll make just enough to be considered profitable. And Disney can shit out more of the stupid prequels and remakes, which I'm gonna fucking hate. And yeah, I know, and Snow White's gonna bomb. Let's just throw that out there right now, because since we're talking about Disney remakes. But that's all I got. Leave your thoughts about these shitty movies in the comments, or mostly shitty at least. Again, I didn't see Furiosa, so I don't know if that's good or not. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.